Am I the asshole for buying my cousin's dream car to prove a point? I, 26-year-old female, work a corporate job at a major fast food chain. I won't say the exact title, but I don't work at an office and spend most of my time visiting and coaching stores and associates. Because of this, my family seems to be under the impression that my job is a loser job, despite me making well over $150,000 a year. I think this perception is exasperated by the fact that I'm a frugal person who doesn't tend to surround myself with expensive things. My cousin, 34-year-old male, is a physics professor at a nearby state university and has done very little to hide the fact that he looks down on my job. From what I understand, we make similar money, but he's still paying off his doctorate degree. I didn't go to college. He has a much bigger house and mortgage and 2 kids. I'm child-free, meaning I have much more disposable income than him. For nearly 2 years, he's been talking about how he really wants a Tesla Model X and how he's slowly saving money for it. He'll joke about how much he wants it by describing how he sees it in his dreams in exquisite detail. Well, several months back while we were at my aunt's birthday party, my cousin made yet another backhanded joke about when I get a real job and make real money, and it was like the straw that broke the camel's back. I was so beyond done. I went back home immediately after the party and ordered a Tesla Model X for myself, exactly to the specifications he has described. So, a couple of weeks ago, I picked up my car and brought it home. I didn't tell a single soul in my family I bought it. But yesterday, I had plans to pick up my cousin's older son to babysit, and I knew it was finally time. I rolled up to my cousin's house in my shiny new Tesla that I washed and polished just that morning specifically for this meetup. Needless to say, cousin was pissed. He asked me all about it with strained enthusiasm and got visibly more angry the more he noticed it was just like the one he wanted. So, in what I would assume was retaliation, he tried to make a comment about, wow, it must have been an adventure and a half to find a bank willing to give you a loan like this. I laughed him off and casually told him I wouldn't know since I paid in cash, which is true. He questioned me, so I pulled up a picture on my phone of the title with my name on it. I think that was what broke him because he quickly ended the conversation and went back inside. But now I've been getting messages from his siblings saying how I'm a petty bitch. Even my mom said that she thought he was an ass, but I shouldn't have escalated just because I could. And while I adore my new car, getting back on my cousin wasn't as satisfying as I thought I'd be. So I'm really beginning to wonder if I am the asshole here. Am I?
Storytime about how I catfished all the popular boys in my grade and they found out about it. So a little background information. I was at a new school. I just started there probably like 4 months before this happened. And I was best friends with this one girl. We're gonna call her Kate. And Kate had a crush on this guy. We're gonna call him Alex. And he liked her back, but she wanted to see if he was loyal. Well, at least that's what it was supposed to be at first. But then he started to actually fall in love with this bitch. So then I started feeling bad and I told my friend that I just wanted to end it right there. And she was like, no, let's keep going. This is so funny. Mind you, this was the boy that she liked. So at that point, I was like, whatever. And then he asked to meet up at the mall. So then we took him on a whole goose chase around the whole mall. Like, we were like, oh, we're in this store. Never mind, we're in this one. And the only reason why we got away with it was because he thought he saw us in the one store. So then we broke up with him and we started talking to all the other popular boys. And on this fake account, we said that we went to a different school. Well, one of the kids at that school said that he never saw us there, like for part 2. Part 2 about how I catfished all the popular boys in my school and they found out about it. So like I said, the one kid said, oh, I never saw you at my school. So then I just blocked him and thankfully that situation got left alone. Well, then after that, like I said, we started talking to all the other popular boys. We're gonna call this catfish Ashley. Well, at that point, everybody knew who Ashley was. Like, I would literally be sitting in class and all the girls would be talking about how much they hate Ashley, how Ashley's such a hoe. Like, all the girls despised her. Sorry, her. And they kind of had a reason to, because we broke up so many relationships and everything. Well, the one night I'm having a sleepover with my friends. Well, Kate asked if she could come to the sleepover as if it wasn't obvious that she could come. Just a quick reminder, Kate was the one who I started the account with. So I was joking around with her and I was like, no, you can't come. So I wake up the next morning, right? And all the popular boys are blowing up my phone on my actual accounts, like for part 3. Part 3 about how I catfished all the popular boys in my school and they found out. So like I said, I wake up the next morning and thankfully it was a Sunday. And like I said, I woke up to text messages from all of Alex's friend group. And all these text messages were like, are you the one running the Ashley account? We saw screenshots of all the messages between you and Kate. So I texted Kate and I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like, how does everybody know? And she made some bullshit ass excuse saying that her brother took her phone and took pictures of all the conversations and sent them to everybody. Which obviously I knew that wasn't true. But after that I went into a whole depression because everybody just kept coming at me for this fake account. Whatever, it was literally me and her who created it. She was the one who wanted to make it to fucking catfish this guy that she liked. So I wasn't going to school for a few days and my guidance counselor literally had to come to my house. Pretty much drag me out of the fucking house and bring me to school. So I sat in the guidance counselor's office all day and then I had to move schools.
Story time about how my boyfriend broke up with me to marry my mother. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. Yes, my boyfriend actually did marry my mom. A little backstory on him. He and I had been dating for 6 months. We decided we wanted to move in together, but neither of us had a job. So we ended up moving in with my mother. A little backstory on my mom. Her and I never got along when I was growing up. I mean, it would get to the point where we would throw hands. Every single week she had a new boyfriend. Most of the time her boyfriends would come live with us and she would pay for everything. She even asked me to get a job so that I could help support her and her boyfriend. I started working at a restaurant. And yeah, I helped her pay for bills. I would even buy her boyfriend his beer. When I got accepted into college, I decided I would move out. After that, I barely spoke to my mom. Fast forward to when my boyfriend and I move in with her. She would wear lingerie around the house and constantly flirt with my boyfriend. I had to tell her on several occasions to cover up and just leave him alone. But here's the thing, it never bothered my boyfriend. In fact, he would flirt back. I thought he was just joking. Until a few months passed and he breaks up with me. Part 2 of how my boyfriend broke up with me to marry my mother. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. So like I said in part 1, we moved into my mom's house and she was wearing lingerie all the time. And she would constantly flirt with my boyfriend. My boyfriend was having a really hard time finding a job, but luckily I found a job. So I started working as a personal assistant. The problem is that as a personal assistant, you have to be on call almost 24/7. So I was usually never home, and sometimes when I would get home, I'd have to go right back out. This allowed for my mom and my boyfriend to spend a lot of time together by themselves. I would come home and they would be watching movies on the couch together. My mom would always cook him dinner, and then I started finding out stuff. For example, I found out they went to the movies together and they didn't invite me. I only found out because my boyfriend used our joint bank account to pay for the tickets. Sometimes they would order food for themselves and not even offer me any, and they would have beach days. They were spending way too much time together. At first I thought this was good because it meant they got along, but the more my mom dressed provocatively, the more I realized she was trying to seduce him. Then my boyfriend breaks up with me and tells me that I should move out because him and my mom fell in love. Part 3 of how my boyfriend broke up with me to marry my mother. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. So one day my boyfriend breaks up with me and tells me that I should move out. When I asked him why, he said that him and my mother fell in love. But since I was already suspecting something, it didn't really surprise me. But of course I was still devastated. That's when he asked me if I could move out that same night. Mind you, I don't have any money or even a place to go to. That's when I run over to my mom's room and guess what? She had locked herself inside. The coward didn't even want to face her own daughter. She told me that the best thing for everyone was for me to move out and that she knew I could get back up on my feet. So I grabbed some of my stuff and I went over to my best friend's house. My best friend invited me to live with her, thank God. A few weeks later, my mom invites me to her wedding with my boyfriend. Or ex, I should say. Last I heard, she's doing OnlyFans and my ex is living off of her. I have a better job, I'm thriving and have my own apartment. Story time about how I stole my best friend's boyfriend. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. My best friend and I had known each other for almost 7 years. We met in college and she was always dating around and had several boyfriends. I had no boyfriends because my parents were super strict even though I was in college. There was only one boy that I really liked, but like I said, my parents were super strict so I could never date anyone. What's worse is that I know this boy had a crush on me too. Fast forward 5 years later, my best friend and I are living together. She's on Tinder, Bumble, and all these other dating apps. She had been going on several days because she really wanted to find a relationship. Well, one day she comes home and she says that she really liked this guy she went on a date with. They ended up dating a month before I even met him. One day she invites him over because she wanted me to meet him. He comes in and as soon as we lock eyes, I'm in shock. It's the boy that I had a crush on in college. Which, like I said, I knew he had a crush on me too. We hugged and chatted for the entire night, and I could tell my best friend really liked him. A few days later, he starts following me on Instagram and we start DMing. He tells me that he had a crush on me in college and I tell him that I did too. Part 2 is up. My best friend's boyfriend starts DMing me on Instagram. He confesses that he had a crush on me when we were in college together, and I told him that I did too. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. From that day on, he would DM me every single day and we would just flirt back and forth. I started feeling really guilty and I told him one day I can't do this anymore. That's when he told me he also felt guilty and that the best thing was for us to stop talking, so we did. I was so sad. A few weeks passed by and my best friend asked me if she could have the apartment all to herself because she's planning a romantic dinner for him. I said yes, but I felt so jealous. I left the apartment because I realized that I was so in love with him. I went to the supermarket and ate a whole pack of Oreo cookies and went to the movies. I get a text message from my best friend asking me to come home immediately. My stomach sank and I thought she had found out. When I get there, she's crying and she says that he broke up with her. I asked if he said why and she said because he was in love with another woman. My stomach sank again. I was there with her the entire night while she cried knowing her boyfriend left her because of me. Part 3. My best friend's boyfriend had broken up with her because of me. I didn't have the heart to tell her. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. A few days later, she started going out on Tinder dates again. I could see that she was feeling better, so I decided to confess to her everything. And she told me she could tell that he and I liked each other. Then she told me I should date him. Well, I didn't waste any time. I sent him a text message and asked him if he wanted to meet up for dinner. And when we did, he asked me to be his girlfriend. We dated for 6 months before he proposed. He even got my name tattooed on his neck. The only problem is that my mom thinks he might do the same thing to me. I don't even want to think about that because I truly believe that he loves me. But let's hope not. I've been planning the wedding and I asked my best friend to come. Of course she said yes. She's super happy for me. And she actually has a boyfriend now. Do you guys think my fiance will end up doing the same thing to me?
One day, my cousin made a Tinder, and we were having a family barbecue, so he came over. He was like, oh my god, Sam, like, this really hot girl just, like, matched with me, and then he shows me. And then I see the profile, and it's literally pictures of Madison beer. But the name on the profile was, like, Kalani. I was like, bro, I don't know who you think you're fucking texting, but it's not Madison beer. You're texting someone's fucking auntie right now, whole ass auntie. He's like, guess we're about to find out. I was like, no, what the no? He's like, yeah, I just gave her the Addy. She's about to pull up. Like, we're gonna meet. Like, it's all cool, Sam. Like, trust me. Trust me. Trust me, he said. Okay. I trusted him. So I see a car pull up, and he's like, oh my god, I think it's her. I was like, oh shit, what if I do meet Madison Beer? The door freaking opens, and this old lady pops up. I look at my cousin, and I'm like, go! Go hug her! Go, go, go! You were so excited. It's Kalani. The one and only. Come on.
Storytime of how my best friend got so weirdly obsessed with me that she even plotted to kill my boyfriend. So at the time, me and this girl, let's just call her Olivia, had only been friends for about 2 years. I mean, we really did everything together. We were with each other 24/7, and I mean, we were pretty good friends. But the only thing about our friendship is she did not like when I had other friends. I mean, she didn't have any other friends herself, but literally she would joke around about strangling my other friends because she didn't like when I gave my attention to anyone else. But honestly, I just thought of it as a joke. And then I started dating this guy, let's just name him Jacob. He was probably the sweetest guy I had ever met, and he was a real simp for me. So we started dating and about 4 or 5 months go by, and he started getting these texts from a random number. And it would always be cringy things like leave her or you die, get away from her, and like stupid cringy threats. Then one night, me and him were just hanging out. Then he gets a text with his exact address saying he had till tonight to leave me or he wouldn't see another day. Then we hear a knock at the door. I'm running out of time, like for part 2. Part 2 of how my best friend got so weirdly obsessed with me that she plotted to kill my boyfriend. So continuing with the story, we heard a knock at the door and it ended up being her. And she said, oh, I'm just coming by to check on you and make sure you're okay. Mind you, we were at his house. And he looks at me like, what is she doing here? So I asked her to leave, and then she ends up getting so mad at me just because I asked her to give us alone time. So the night goes on, and then when I get home, she's in my room. At this time, my whole entire family was out of town, and I was the only one home. So I was like, oh, hey. It was literally just like a normal night, and then I go to shower, and when I get back out of the shower, she's gone. And then my boyfriend calls me, and he goes, why is Maddie here? She had like this black mask on, but she's stupid enough to not realize that we know it's her. And I mean, we're being real here. She was my best friend at the time, so of course he's not going to call the police on her. But she had a knife in her hand, and he opens the door and he like pins her against the wall and then calls 911, I guess. And then to sum it up, when they get there, she tells them everything that she was going to do, and then they put her in a mental hospital. But she said that she was going to murder everybody that gets close to her.
Story time. My best friend slashed my tires. But before I get into the story time, I just want to let you guys know that my website is now officially open and the link is right in bio. So as you all know, I used to take clients, and during this time I was blowing up on social media. So I had this celebrity reach out to me and they wanted their nails done, and I'm like, of course. So I had to travel to them. And of course, the first person I had to tell was my best friend. I told her all the details, where I was going, what time I was leaving, how far the distance was. And I thought she would be more happy for me, but her response was like, oh, that's cool, I guess. But I didn't really think much of it. So the morning of, I had to get up early to drive out there because it was a 2-hour drive. And then I noticed all my tires are slashed. And I checked the cameras and it was her. But that's okay because I got her dad to drive me.
Crazy story time about how I found my aunt and my boyfriend hooking up at a family function. So every year my mom and stepdad would have a Christmas party and everyone from both sides of the family would come. And I also invited my boyfriend. And at this time my boyfriend and I were both juniors in high school. So everybody came to the party and everything was going good. Well, like an hour into the party, all the adults were super drunk. So before we all opened gifts, I decided to help my mom clean up dinner. So while I'm washing the dishes, I look over and my aunt and boyfriend are talking a lot. And she started to get really touchy with him, but I didn't think anything of it because she was super drunk. So after I'm done cleaning up, we all started opening gifts. And my boyfriend goes up to my room to go get his phone off the charger. And after he went upstairs, my aunt was like, oh, I need to go throw up. So about 10 minutes goes past and my boyfriend's still up in the room grabbing his phone, so I went to check on him. And I walk upstairs to see my aunt and my boyfriend laying on my bed making out. Like for part 2. Part 2 to how I caught my aunt and my boyfriend hooking up at a family function. So like I said, they are laying on my bed making out. Doors wide open, they don't even bother to shut the door. And both of their shirts are off. And I think I should just put in here, my aunt is like 28. She's on my stepdad's side. She's really young. So they look up and my aunt's just like drunk as fuck looking at me. And she's like, do you want to join? Like, bitch, what the fuck? So I'm just like shook and I start screaming. Everybody rushes up the stairs and my mom pushes me out of the way and sees my boyfriend and my aunt laying on my bed with their shirts off. So my mom starts screaming at everybody. So my mom calls the cops, says that an adult is touching an underage boy, and she calls his mom, tells her what happened. So my boyfriend and I broke up. So that spread around the whole school, and word got out that they actually started seeing each other.
This is why you should always double check your Uber's license plate. I was at my friend's apartment who lived in a really rough part of town. That night I had gotten super twisted and was partying it up with friends until 4 in the morning. For some reason, instead of staying the night like I normally would, I decided to Uber back to my own apartment. My friend's apartment had 2 separate entrances and exits to the building, one in the back unlit parking lot and one facing the street. They also had 2 sets of keys for each door and I only had the keys to the back of the apartment. My Uber was obviously going to arrive to the street, so I exited that way and the front door locked behind me. I'm a small, petite female in my early 20s and I can hardly stand upright. I propped myself up against the street lamp and waited for my Uber. I checked to see what car I was getting picked up and all I could make out was that it was a black sedan. Soon after stepping outside, a black sedan pulls up to the curb and the window rolls down. I could instantly feel like something was wrong. He had an expression like he was tearing me apart with his eyes. After seeing that look, I knew what it felt like to be prey. He basically barks at me that he's my Uber driver. This was a red flag because usually the Uber driver would confirm my name. I asked him, "What's my name?" He's immediately enraged and starts screaming about how he doesn't have effing time for this and just to get in the effing car. I've never sobered up faster in my life. This is when I quickly checked the license plate and it wasn't a match. Part 2, why you should always double check your Uber's license plate. After checking the car's license plate, I panicked when it wasn't a match. Meanwhile, this guy is still screaming at me and I have no idea what to do. If I was to bolt in either direction, this guy could easily outrun me or have a weapon. I couldn't run back inside my friend's apartment complex because the door had locked behind me and I didn't have the key. If I screamed, I'm not exactly in the type of neighborhood where someone would try to be a vigilante and I can still hear the music radiating from my friend's 3rd floor apartment. I knew they wouldn't hear me. It's 4 a.m. and no one is around. I was stuck. People talk about how they either sprint into action or freeze, but I felt incapable of doing either in that moment. It was the absolute worst feeling I've ever felt in my life. From when he started screaming until this point, about 20 seconds had passed. Just as he's getting out of the car, another black sedan pulls right up behind him. I ran over and checked the license plate. It was a match. I throw myself in and scream at the real Uber driver, "What's my name?" The poor dude looks terrified but says my name. I quickly reply, "Get me the F out of here. That man is trying to kidnap me." My dude flew out of there with no hesitation. He offered to call the cops, to which I declined and now regret, and then walked me to the front door of my apartment, ensuring that I got in safely. I gave him the fattest tip my college student bank account would allow.
Story time about how I set up my boyfriend to cheat on me so that I could break up with him. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. I'm at the airport, so I'm sorry if it's noisy. My boyfriend and I have been together for way too long. When our relationship first started, I was constantly chasing him. He never wanted a relationship and basically didn't want to commit to me. So basically, he was trying to be an F-boy while he was with me. And of course, I let him do whatever he wanted because I was too afraid to lose him. I didn't want to be that annoying, nagging girlfriend, so I just never said anything to him. Fast forward 5 years. I've had a huge glow up since we started dating. I lost weight, I got super fit at the gym, like I have abs now. I opened up my own nail salon, and I even got myself a car and a house. Well, let's just say that he stayed the same. In fact, he has no ambitions to getting a better job or anything, and it really annoys me. He started talking about getting married, and I was like, hell nah. But I don't know how to tell him that I don't want to be with him anymore. I mean, I love him, but I just don't want to be with him anymore. And because I'm too much of a coward to actually break up with him, I set him up to cheat on me. I found this girl on Instagram, and I told her to DM my boyfriend. He DM'd her back. Part 2 of how I got my boyfriend to cheat on me so that I could break up with him. So I got this girl on Instagram to DM him, and this girl was totally his type. Basically, she looked like me but with blonde hair. So she sent him a little DM. He wasted no time and he got back to her. That same day, they set up a freaking date. So I told this girl that all she had to do was go out with him, like meet him at a restaurant, but that was it. Little did I know that she had a crush on him. And it makes sense now thinking about it because my friend recommended her, and my friend afterward told me that she actually had a crush on him. A few days later, she sent me a picture of him sleeping in her bed without a shirt on. And she basically tells me everything that happened. So now I have all this proof. But guess what? I actually got really pissed. It broke my heart because I didn't expect him to do that. And he was totally avoiding all my calls and messages. He finally came over to my house, and that's when I showed him all of the receipts, all the pictures and messages between him and the girl. That's when he told me that she drugged him and forced him into doing it. Of course, I knew that wasn't true. Then he pulls out a ring and asked me to marry him. That's when he got on his knees and started begging. Part 3 is up. Part 3 of how I set up my boyfriend to cheat on me so that I could break up with him. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. As he's begging on his hands and knees for me to marry him, that's a call from the girl that he cheated on me with. He puts the phone in his pocket and he started acting all nervous, so that's how I knew. That's when I told him to show me his phone. Then he ran to the bathroom and threw it into the toilet. Then he locked himself in my bathroom and basically begged me for 3 hours to stay with him. He told me that he would never be able to find anyone as good as I was, and that he loved me and blah, 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 blah. At this point, I told him I was going to call the cops to get him out, but I just couldn't bring myself to it. I really felt bad for him. I mean, after all, I did set him up. He eventually left and I didn't speak to him for a few weeks. A few days ago, I actually started talking to this new guy. He's been super flaky and every time we decide to go out, he always bails. So now I'm thinking maybe I should take my ex back. He sent me flowers, but I've been trying to ignore him. But my parents don't want me to get back with him. Part of me thinks that he was probably already cheating on me. I mean, he DM'd that girl really quick. I honestly don't know what to do, and I'm even starting to feel guilty about what I did. At the same time, he totally shouldn't have cheated. What do you guys think I should do?
Story time. My clients fought each other. As you all know, I took clients for about a year, and man, do I have stories. Not only that, but I was home-based. Now let's get into the story. So in my nail room, I had extra seats just in case clients came early or they want to bring guests. So in this case, my first client came to me late, so that means my second client had to wait a little bit at my seating station. So I'm still working on my first client. Let's just call her Tori. And she's talking about how she just recently got a boyfriend. And all my clients love spilling the tea. So my second client that was waiting, let's just name her Layla, could obviously hear us talking. And then Tori starts going into detail about her boyfriend, what he looks like, what school he goes to. And that's when Layla jumps into the conversation. It gets messy. Story time. My clients fought each other, part 2. So like I said in my previous video, Layla just jumped in the conversation, and girl, did she have questions. She would ask questions about his height, like what sport he played. And Tori was just answering all her questions. So y'all know me, I'm super nosy, so I was low-key connecting the dots. And then Layla said, we have similar boyfriends. So at this point, I'm just filing Tori's nails and I think to myself, oh shit, it's about to go down. And then Layla pulls up a picture of the boyfriend and shows Tori. And then Tori said, that's my boyfriend. And Layla hit her with, that's my baby father. Part 3. Story time. My clients fought each other, part 3. So like I said in my previous video, Layla said that was her baby father. She has a whole kid with this dude. And Tori was denying it all, saying they've been talking for months and now they're finally dating. And then they start arguing. At this point, I'm already done Tori's nails. And Tori said she don't got time for this. Her boyfriend is outside to come pick her up, which is also Layla's baby father. Let's just name him Chris. So Chris pulls up and then my 2 clients just run out the door, trying to beat each other to the car door. And then they start to fight. And what does Chris do? He just drives away. So clearly he didn't care about either one of them. And they know that, so they stop fighting. And now they're really good friends. Yeah, this actually did happen. It was very entertaining. If you want to send me your own story time, you can send it to my Instagram at @anacrylics.
Reasons why people thought I was a hoe in high school. For this story, I was 100,000,000% the shitty person in the equation. And I don't deny that at all. Like, it was so fucked up that I did this. But I was 14 years old and I handled it the best way I could after the fact. So I was friends with this girl, we'll call her Barb. And me and Barb were in the same gym class. And she would always tell me about this kid that she was talking to. We'll call him Jacob. And me and Jacob had already known each other because we went to middle school with each other. And like, we would flirt here and there, but like, it was never anything serious. So then one day I was hanging out with my other friend, we'll call her Chelsea. P.S. Chelsea was the girl from my other story time where she slept with 2 boys in one night. So Chelsea wanted me to go with her and hang out with like this boy toy that she had and then his group of friends. And lo and behold, Chelsea's boy toy was friends with Jacob. So we all go to like this abandoned church. We do some illegal things, not gonna lie. And the entire time Jacob was just like flirting with me, like mad hard. And I pulled Chelsea aside and I'm like, oh my god, like Jacob definitely wants to get with me, but I don't know what to do because of Barb. Reasons why people thought I was a hoe in high school, part 2. So I start talking to Chelsea and I'm like, listen, Jacob is really coming on to me strong. It's very obvious that like he wants to get with me and I don't know if I should because it would upset Barb. And Chelsea was like, bro, like fuck Barb, like who gives a fuck, like he wants you, that's not your problem. And I was like, okay, well if he tries something, I'm not gonna stop him, but I'm definitely not gonna make the first move. So then we're leaving this abandoned church building, I don't even know what it was. And me and him were talking, flirting, whatever. And just to paint an image of like where we were, I don't know if it was like a firehouse or like an abandoned church, but there was like a basement attached to it and it had like spray paint all over the walls, graffiti. It was a cool vibe, but it was like kind of creepy. But anyway, everybody was walking up the stairs, getting ready to go back to the cars. And he grabs my arm and he's like, hold on, wait. And my friend Chelsea like gave me that look like, you better get some, girl. And I was like, what's up? Just chill for 1 second on my page. I'm posting part 3 now. Reasons why people thought I was a hoe in high school, part 3. So Jacob pulls me back behind a wall and I'm like, what's up? And he was like, listen, I like really want to hook up with you, but like you can't say anything to Barb. And I was like, oh, like I don't know if I should, like I feel really bad. And then like we kept contemplating back and forth, and then we came to a conclusion like, yeah, let's just not tell her. It was really fucked up. I know, but like just stay tuned because like I do handle it in like a somewhat responsible way. So we start making out, and then my friend Chelsea comes back in and she's like, come on Mia, let's go in the car, like I have to go home. So then it's me, Chelsea, and Jacob in the back seat of Chelsea's Boy Toys car, and I think there was like somebody else in the passenger seat. That's why like Chelsea wasn't in the passenger seat. And we only made out for like 10 seconds, but the entire car ride home, like I felt so guilty. I felt so sick to my stomach. But then I was like, you know what? I mean, like the damage is already done. So then we like made out a little bit more in the car on the way home. Part 4 coming now. Reasons why everybody in high school thought I was a hoe, part 4. So, me and Chelsea go back to my house. We have a sleepover, and the entire time I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe I just did that. I feel so bad, blah, blah, blah. And you remember how, like, Chelsea was hyping me the fuck up, like, while we were in that situation, right? Well, then, when we got back to my house, she was like, yeah, like, I don't know, like, she's gonna be really upset if she finds out. Like, maybe you should just tell her. And then I was like, yeah, like, I think I want to tell her. Which, first of all, Chelsea, like, fuck you for switching the fuck up. Like, you should have told me from the start. Like, bitch, don't do that. I mean, I should have had common sense to know not to do that, but, like, you know, I'm fucking stupid. So the day after, it was Easter, and Chelsea was like, yeah, like, I think you should tell her. And I was like, you're right, it's fucked up if I don't tell her. I should tell her now. On fucking Easter. So I call her, she instantly picks up, and she's like, oh my god, hi Mia, what's up, happy Easter, like I'm with my family right now, my mom says hi, like what's going on? I was like, hey Barb, happy Easter, I hooked up with Jacob last night, but tell your mom I said hi though.
This just might be the craziest spring break story you've ever heard. Me and 14 of my friends decided to go to Cabo for spring break when we were in college. We rented an Airbnb and thought everything was going to be so much fun. But on the first night, there was already a couple of my friends that were too tired to go out, so we just decided to split up. Half of my friends stayed at the house and half of us went out to a bar. The bar we ended up going to was right on the water, and as we're sitting there eating our food, a yacht pulls up. And I don't mean like a small yacht, I mean like a huge party yacht. There was little dinghy boats bringing people to and from the yacht. My friend that spoke Spanish went over and started talking to one of the boat taxi drivers. He said that if we wanted to, we could all jump on his boat and he would take us out to the yacht. Since it was spring break, of course I couldn't pass up on this opportunity, so I started running towards his boat to jump on because he was screaming for us to hurry. I was in such a hurry to make sure that I got on that boat, I didn't even look back to see if my friends were behind me. By the time that I realized none of my friends had come with me, I was already halfway to the yacht. Since I was already halfway to the yacht and I didn't speak any Spanish, I just decided to wait it out, get on the yacht, and make some friends when I get there. Luckily, there was plenty of other students there on spring break, so I made plenty of friends. I ended up just staying on the boat all night because the taxi stopped running, but as soon as I could get off in the morning, I went ahead and got off. I called a taxi to drive me back to the Airbnb, but whenever we pulled up to the gates of the neighborhood, there was security and police everywhere. My taxi driver kept driving and dropped me off at the front door, but when we pulled up to the Airbnb, it was literally surrounded by police. That's when I realized that this had to have something to do with me and my friends, and it wasn't just the area we were in. When I saw my friends, I ran up to them and asked them what was going on. It turned out that one of my friends who had stayed at the house ended up falling down the stairs in the middle of the night, breaking the banister and one of the paintings on the wall, and had to be rushed to the ER because he split his head open. The property manager had called the police to make sure that we paid for the damages to the house. The weird part is that they wanted it in cash and said we weren't leaving until we paid. My friend that spoke Spanish was the only one that was able to actually talk to the police. They told her that if we didn't pay for the damages to the house in cash, we weren't leaving the property. We had the money to pay for it, but not in cash because they were wanting over $2,000. We were all freaking out thinking that we were going to be held hostage here in Cabo forever. We all called our parents, who then contacted the U.S. Embassy, and before we knew it, our faces were all over the news with the headlines, 15 American college students held against their will in Cabo. At the moment, there was nothing we could do, so we just decided to go back in the house and sit down and wait. I guess the property manager had also ended up calling a maid service to help clean up the damage done inside the house. Whenever the maids got there, we explained to them what was going on and that we were absolutely terrified. Luckily, they had already seen the news, and so they were willing to help us. They moved all their cleaning supplies into the house and backed their van into the garage. They explained to my friend that if we all got in the van, they would drive us to a nearby hotel where we could stay the rest of the trip. The police were guarding the front door, but we all snuck around them and ended up getting out. We did have to stay in a gross hotel for about a week, though.
Story time about when my mom caught me doing it with my best friend.
I was 16 at the time, and there was this new boy that moved in across the street from us. He was super cute, and I noticed him right away. My parents were super strict. I wasn't allowed to have a boyfriend or even any guy friends, and I knew right away that I wanted to at least become this guy's friend because he was so cute. So one day I told my mom, hey, why don't we take cookies or something to welcome the new neighbors in town? And my mom was like, that's a great idea. So we end up going over and we meet them. They're really nice. And the cute boy comes downstairs and he tells his mom he's going to go to Bible study. Well, when we get home, I tell my mom, hey, you know what? Maybe I should join a Bible study group too. And my mom was like, great idea. She even told me to go ask him about it since he had mentioned it. One day he's mowing the lawn, so I decided to go talk to him and ask him about the Bible study group. He actually ended up taking me there that same day and we had a fun class. Over the next few weeks, we became really, really good friends. Best friends. We told each other everything. But there was always attraction between. Part 2. So my neighbor, I'll call him Curtis, we're really good friends at this point, but we were always attracted to each other, but because we were in Bible study together and our parents were very religious, we kind of tried to stay away from anything. One day, we're in my house chilling in my room because I knew my mom wouldn't be home for a while, so I told him to just come upstairs. We ended up eating Pop-Tarts and watching a Netflix show. The whole time I was mustering the courage to tell him that I really liked him because I really felt that I wanted to be honest with him instead of just lying to him, and the whole reason why I even got into the Bible study group was to be with him, or at least spend time with him. So finally, I just blurted it out. I said, I like you. And I like you like a lot. He just stares at me blankly. He doesn't know what to say, and I could tell that he was kind of nervous. So I said, do you like me too? He said, yes, you know that I do. And then we started making out. This was the first time I'd ever been kissed, and it was the first time I'd ever had a boy in my room by myself. I kept thinking my mom could come home at any moment, so I told him that he should go home. Suddenly we're on my bed and we're doing things that I'd never done before. Suddenly my door swings open, and guess who it is? My mom. Part 3. So my mom swings the door open and she sees us on my bed doing stuff. Of course, I'm mortified. I'm super embarrassed. I'm also embarrassed because I know how she's going to react in front of him. My mom, of course, just starts yelling her head off. Then we walk over to his house. She proceeds to tell his mom what we did. And then 5 minutes later, my dad walks into their house. I was really afraid of my dad. So now we're in their kitchen and his parents and my parents are just staring us down and telling us that what we did was completely wrong. Then my dad starts saying that we need to get married. I can tell Curtis is freaking out. Of course, I'm freaking out too. His parents actually agree that we should get married. Thankfully, my mom was completely against it and she said absolutely not, they're too young. I literally felt like I was dying. I was obviously grounded for months, couldn't go anywhere, I couldn't do anything, and I obviously didn't speak to Curtis again. Then my mom tells me that Curtis and his family actually moved away. My heart was completely broken. A few years later in college, I contacted him through Facebook. We met up and we've been together ever since. I knew that our connection back then was super strong, and it is now.
Story time on how my mom threw hot boiling water at my dad. Okay, so boom. My parents been together for 15 years at this point and I was only 14. My parents were only dating for a couple of months and then my mom got pregnant with me. So they ended up getting married soon after. The only problem with that is my mom never really got to know my real dad. He had anger issues, and I'm talking real anger issues. And he refused to go to therapy. Well, I'm sure you guys guessed it. My dad was putting his hands on my mom, and I mean beating her for dumb reasons. And every time I tried to stop it, my dad would literally turn around and beat me too. You would think he would stop for his daughter. But because he would beat me so bad, my mom always told me to stay out of it. Well, one day my mom was cooking and she was boiling some water. My dad came home and seen that she was cooking and got angry. He said that his food should be ready before he gets home. My mom just stayed quiet and he went to go hit her. But this day, my mom was tired of it. So something changed. Like for part 2. Part 2 on how my mom threw hot boiling water at my dad. So like I said, once my dad got home, he was super angry. He told my mom that his food should have been ready already, even though my mom was literally cooking it. So he went to beat her, but my mom was sick of it. But as he went to hit her, my mom just took the boiling water and threw it at his face. My dad screamed, ran upstairs, and went into the bathroom. My mom took the keys, ran to the car, and we drove to her sister's house. My mom was hysterical. No one in our family knew what was going on in our household, so we had to explain everything to everyone. We called the cops on my dad, and now he's in jail. But I did ask my mom what changed this time. She said she couldn't stand there anymore, but not because of her, but because of me. She didn't want me to grow up thinking this was okay and that this how men treat their women, and she definitely didn't want him to lay one more finger on me ever again. So she had to build up the courage for herself and for me both, and I will always be super proud of my mom. Stay safe, guys.
Story time about how I found my husband using Tinder and all the freaking dating apps. Claim this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. Once again, I'm at the airport, sorry. My husband and I were both total sluts when we met. He was seeing like 10 girls when I first met him, and I was dating 3 guys at the time. Well, let me tell you, neither of us trusted each other, like not one bit. Eventually, he asked me to be his girlfriend, and I really wasn't sure if I wanted to say yes, but I did. He is so good looking. Like everywhere we go, we get told we're such a good looking couple. So we know we're both pretty good looking. To be fair, we were both addicted to Instagram. I would get tons of DMs from guys, and sometimes I would answer. And I know that he was getting DMs from girls, although he never told me. We dated for a year, and then he asked me to marry him. Of course, I said yes. I thought this was his way of telling me that he was going to commit to me 100%. After 6 months of being married, I started getting really suspicious. He would never leave his phone unattended, and if we were having dinner, he would always put his phone face down. I know you all know that's a red flag. Basically, he was hiding his phone from me like all the time. One night, we got super drunk, and I made sure to wait until he fell asleep. I got on his phone and found Tinder, Bumble, and Hinge. Part 2 is up. Part 2 of how I found out my husband was using Tinder, Bumble, and Hinge all at the same time. But yeah, and cheating on me. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. So I got him drunk enough that he fell asleep. I got onto his phone and I found all the dating apps. I quickly screenshot every conversation he'd had on each of the apps. I was literally on his phone for 4 hours. Like, I didn't sleep at all that night. And the whole time I was reading his messages, I was crying. Like, I literally thought he was dedicated to me. I sent myself all of the screenshots and then deleted them from his phone. I also went through his Instagram and found a bunch of DMs from different girls. And a lot of them were big influencers. I can spill so much tea about that, by the way. I found a bunch of naked pictures from girls as well, and he even had a freaking Snapchat. At that point, I couldn't look anymore. So here's what I did. I invited both of our families to our house for dinner, ordered from a super fancy restaurant, and made sure everyone was coming. When we sat down to dinner, I told him I was going to go get my laptop. He asked me why, and I told him to give me a second. He literally thought I was going to give him a big surprise. That's when I exposed him in front of both of our families. Part 3 is 3 of how I found out my husband was using dating apps, cheating on me, and I exposed him in front of both of our families. So as everyone is sitting down and having dinner, I start a slideshow of all the DMs, pictures that had been sent between him and all these girls. Yes, I was petty enough to make a slideshow. My husband looks at me and tells me to take it down. Of course I didn't. That's when his mom got up from her chair and slapped him straight across the face. Of course my husband started crying instantly. His dad even grabbed him by the shoulders and shook him. My family was in shock. They were so disappointed in him. Mind you, him and my mom had a great relationship. He hung out with my family all the time. That's when I asked him for a divorce and I told him I wanted everything. By the way, my husband and I own a business and he's got his own money. So I ended up taking more than half of the business, 3 out of the 4 cars that he owns, and lots of money. But here's the thing, I still love him. Even though I have my own apartment and we live separately, he comes over all the time for, you know what? Like, we still love each other and still like each other, but I can't get past the fact that he actually cheated on me. He's asking for me to go back